Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Excited to have this great conversation with some very interesting panelists who have deep industry knowledge. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Tammy Fahmy. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Servicing and Strategy at Sotheby's International Realty, where I've been working for 19 years now, celebrating my 19th year. I've had the privilege of having several roles during my time with Sotheby's International Realty, starting with acting as the general counsel for many years, and then moving over to the business side now for the last 5 years. So something I'm truly passionate about is our brand. And I've had the great pleasure of working with really some of the industry's best and most unique entrepreneurs. So I'm very excited to be joined, as I said, by four really knowledgeable industry leaders. And I'd like to take a moment to introduce each of them. Today, we have Matthew Gardner, who's a principal of Gardner Economics, nearly 3 decades of experience, both in the United States and the UK, which is terrific because Sotheby's International Realty International is our middle name. We're in 84 countries around the globe. So truly lucky to have Matthew as part of our conversation. He's got an undergraduate degree in economics from Oxford University, a graduate degree in econometrics from the London School of Economics. So I think he knows a thing or two and can bring some really great perspective to our conversation. We've also got Sean Soderstrom with us, founder and CEO of Corded.io, which is a recruiting, analytics, and CRM system. Sean comes to us with a great deal of industry experience. He co-developed artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and really infuses data science into this amazing software platform that he's created, and actually has been the winner of Inman's Innovator of the Year award. So Sean, congratulations on that. Quite an accomplishment in 2024. Thank you for joining us. And we've got Val Burmester, who I've also known for a great deal of time and have so much respect for what Val does. She is the co-owner of Beyond Brokers, which is a talent acquisition company for real estate brokerages. She's a 20-year veteran and a top broker with more than $1 billion in sales volume, and famously has more than 10,000 contacts in her iPhone.
Wow.
So I didn't know that iPhones could even hold that many contacts, but Val is testing the limits. So good for you, Val. Val has been a brand ambassador and a noted connector of very far and wide reach. So Val, thrilled to have you here. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have Dean Jones, who's the owner and CEO at Realogics, Sotheby's International Realty. I always, when I think of Dean, who also I've known for quite a bit of time over the years, the words big thinker and innovator come to my mind when I think about Dean. And when Dean, I just had the opportunity to be chatting to someone about you yesterday, and those are the words that I used to describe you. So I'm so glad to have you with us. You're a former developer. You've been recognized in the industry as a thought leader, named to the 100 most influential people of the year by the Puget Sound Business Journal, celebrating 15 years with Sotheby's International Realty. Congratulations on
Yes,
that.
thank you.
So I've had the privilege of knowing you for 15 years. I cannot believe it's been that long. It seems like it has passed, in a wink. So congratulations on that, and thrilled to be with you all today.
Thank you, Tammy.
So let's jump in. To set the stage for the conversation today, let's talk about the industry and what we saw last year, where brokerages really faced challenges amid the lowest residential sales volume in nearly 3 decades. So there were just over 4 million units transacted last year. A lot of folks have described 2024 kind of as the year of waiting, waiting for interest rates to come down, waiting for the election results to happen, waiting for practice changes in the industry to take place and really understand how that would impact our business. So even with all of that, this group has found a way to overcome those challenges, um, and the dynamics required really to do it. And I think what we've found is that the key to success really is affiliating with a brand that helps you stand out and become distinguished in the platforms that are utilized. Even though the competition has really never been greater, um, I think, there has been a great migration, let's call it, or a flight to quality. And it's the companies who are going to be able to offer that high quality, high value, um, value proposition to agents and to consumers are the ones that are really going to thrive. And so I think as a result of that, we've seen a lot of consolidation in the industry. I think you all would agree with that. And so opportunities exist again to stand out. Dean has done it masterfully with Realogics, Sotheby's International Realty. And we're going to talk about the different ways to accomplish and take advantage of those opportunities to accomplish growth. Um, you know, Being affiliated with a brand that has a long and consistent history of outperforming, I think is key. For me personally, having been with Sotheby's International Realty for 19 years now, um, both personally and professionally have seen several market cycles as each of you have, whether it was 2006, 2007, and 8 with the global recession, um, obviously the pandemic, which we all navigated together, but all of those business cycles, Sotheby's International Realty has come out ahead. And it's really due in large part to the amazing affiliate partners we've put into place in 84 countries around the world, which has enabled us to take advantage of that size and scale. So with that, let me jump into dissecting how we feel the next phase of this industry is going to progress. As the industry resets, we've been thinking about what that means for agents and talking about the great agent migration and how we can all think about that and what steps do we each need to take to really take advantage and win at the next stage of the industry. So, Matthew, if you don't mind, I'd love to start with you. You've worked within the largest real estate companies across multiple brands. From your perspective, I kind of shared my perspective of what we're seeing. From your perspective, what what do you think of the state of the industry? Are you seeing this migration? Are you seeing consolidation? Can you share some of that with us?
Sure. Thank you, Tammy. I think it's interesting some of the words you used. The waiting was one which I gravitated to in the start of your comments. What I tend to see is recovery, I think is the best way to put it. We're coming from a period where sales, for lots of reasons we might get to, a remarkable market through COVID. Then, of course, as you mentioned, the lowest sales in decades. I see we're really at the cusp of a market which is going to be growing again. And so we're at the first year of it. Depending on where in the country you are, you can say either 2024 was the low point. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it was a year before that. So I really think we're at the precipice now of getting back, I wouldn't say to a normal market, but recovery. And certainly the brokers and companies I speak to, they certainly are seeing sides down, revenue down. In fact, number of brokers is down. But brokers and franchisees are remarkably optimistic, which they tend to always be. And I think we're really at the precipice of a market which is going to take some time to get back to normal, but one that's going to be growing. And then the question does become, as you mentioned, from an owner's perspective, what next? And so I think we've seen the worst is in the rearview mirror. The future looks remarkably rosy, but it's going to look very different, I think, over the course of the next several years.
When you're out there speaking with brokerages, what are you seeing in terms of recruiting techniques? What dynamics are you thinking are going to start to impact decisions by agents about where they're going to spend, their next 5 to 10 years of their career?
Well, naturally, as a real estate economist, I'd say economics and market intelligence remarkably important, and quite frankly, it is. And what's been interesting is that we've seen that evolve over the course of the last decade or so. But I think that really is something which I certainly find from a brokerage and a broker perspective, they want to know what is going on, what will be going on, so that they can better advise their clients. I mean, we've got about, what, $13 trillion of mortgage debt out there in the residential world today, but we've got about $35 trillion of equity. So
Yeah.
I think that it's becoming more important now than it ever has been to get a full understanding of the market. I think brokers are going to look at companies that can provide that over and above, I would say, anything else, whether it be locations or commissions or whatever that may be. So I think really they want to be in a position they can best advise their clients. So that I think number one, without a doubt. That and beyond recruiting from a knowledge-based perspective, training, mentorship, these kinds of things are going to lead brokers now, I think more than ever, rather than the traditional model, to decide where they want to be. They're going to be that. There's going to be a continued flight to quality.
Well, it sounds like you were kind of reading our playbook at Sotheby's International Realty, from providing things like a luxury outlook report to make sure that our global sales advisors are on the cutting edge of what luxury trends will be, making sure that we're providing the most training and learning opportunities so that they have the ability to communicate those value propositions to their clients. Always so important. From your perspective, if you're advising a brokerage, what investments would you be, suggesting to brokerage owners to make, to really be serving their brokerage and their agents into the future?
Well, I think we mentioned a lot of them already, and it really is going to be that market intelligence. I think that they're going to be looking more, especially now, given the litigation that we've seen within the industry over the last year, 18 months. That's going to become, I think, even more important. And certainly, depending on where you are, if you are a broker representing buyers, for example, then how can you best demonstrate your knowledge within the marketplace and justify the commission structure that's in place? So that, I think, is going to be over and above. We are going to continue to see that consolidation within the industry, I believe. And so you've really got to be able to answer those remarkably important questions being asked by your clients. Why you? What makes you better than the guy next door to you? And so it's that value proposition. And so to encompass that, all the things that clearly that you mentioned that Sotheby's are doing right now and have been doing over time really do come to the fore. So I think that is going to be more important now, because I think there are going to be more questions rather than the natural assumption of home sellers or indeed buyers that say, okay, well, yeah, I know what the fees are. It's always been that way. Let's just go ahead. No, why you? And I think that the more that owners, people like Dean, can do to demonstrate how they can separate themselves from the pack, which we know is one that is growing. But the question now becomes, are we going to continue to see that growth in brokers? We've actually got a lot of older brokers. Maybe Val will talk about this, who are now aging out.
Yeah.
What about the next generation? And what is that next generation looking for within? Maybe this is something that also Sean can talk to. What drives them to Dean's store, for example, and not to another brokerage? So that, I think, is over and above. I mean, yes, these kinds of things are important, but it really is a person-to-person industry. And demonstrating that is going to be, I think, really going to separate that broker from everyone else.
Matthew, I think you're so right in terms of there has, with this consolidation in the industry, along with it has come the commoditization of agents' services. And so let me jump to Val for a minute. Val, you've been in the industry for many years. You were led to create a company called Beyond Brokers to help brokerages grow. How do you counsel brokerage owners on the approach to distinguish themselves from this commodity type mindset?
Well, being an agent, I felt that I needed leadership, I needed support myself, and I needed a partner. I didn't want to be sold something. I wanted somebody to be able to say, when I had a problem, let me sell you something. And I didn't want them to say that. I wanted them to say, let me help you, which led to me going to corporate 5 years ago and saying, hey, I want to be the recruiter. And after 5 years of recruiting for Sotheby's only, I love this brand. And I just know we are the only, I would say the only brokerage and brand that's doing this. Is that we're not recruiting. We actually are an elegant solution to a growth problem. And that's what led to this company, is that I only wanted to be part of Sotheby's because I am a Sotheby's driven girl. It's not recruitment. It's a targeted data driven approach to identifying and vetting and attracting the best agents to the brand. And it's not about quantity. It's laser focused on securing the top agents, and not anywhere. We know our numbers, but we want talent that aligns with our brokerage's culture, their values, and then their commitment to DEI, whatever the brokerage and the leaders want. And I find it collectively, working with more than 20 affiliates, everybody wants the same thing in their with the same broker, the same culture, the same value driven. And we're not just about I would say we're not about, yeah, again, quantity over or quality over quantity. I can't talk today, obviously, so we'll have to edit that. But I call it an elegant solution to a growth problem. And I could not be more proud, because when I'm talking to agents and I can tell whether they have the same passion that I do, that they definitely are worth a conversation. And I call it conversations. We don't recruit, we have conversations.
Yeah, and that is a mindset, I think, that distinguishes how we as a brand approach that. We talk about talent attraction as opposed to selling or trying to convince, because I think we feel like there's a lot of value to be offered, and that appeals to someone who's looking for the things that you highlighted, like a great culture and values that will drive their growth. And as a brand, we've never been about quantity. Even though we are in 84 countries around the globe, we never set out to be the biggest brand. That's a lane reserved for others. Our focus has always been on quality and providing value. So what you described, Val, resonates completely. Are you seeing any particular demographics or, affiliations that play out, as you're out talking to so many um, agents around the country, really?
When you say the word Sotheby's, it just attracts right away, because they automatically think we're the luxury broker, and some people don't feel deserving of it. So I find that more than anything is when you're talking to someone, they're like, "Oh, what are you doing talking to me? I was one of those agents, 12 years ago." They all want the same thing. They want a great manager, a great leader. If they're not getting support, they are blown away by our marketing. And then when you share that we have all that in one house, they kind of overwhelms them. And I find that the trajectory is, a lot of people, if they really want to grow their business and elevate and have the highest average sales price, I do notice that in every market, and I work with Corded, who's Sean is on here a lot, we can tell what their average sales price is. I can tell the agents that are slowly growing, but the trajectory coming with Sotheby's is going to be so much faster and more accurate, because you say Sotheby's and we don't have to follow up with luxury. Everybody just assumes we're luxury. And people want that. And if they don't want it and they want to stay with the discount brokerage, that's their fit. That's okay. It doesn't mean that someday they won't, but most people are very welcome to the conversation, because whatever I say, Sotheby's is in my conversation and they're excited about it. So I think we're going to see a lot of change because of the disruptions in the market. And the one thing everybody consistently says they want is stability, and we have that.
I think you're absolutely right in terms of the stability and navigating challenging waters and coming out ahead. When you're having these conversations with agents, you know, if an agent is doing fine and is perfectly content, and in fact getting a little bit busier as the market improves, what do you say to them about why they should make a move or why it's time to consider a move?
I love this question because I get this a lot. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. I love my manager. I love my culture. I love that answer because I love happy agents, right? Happy agents are great agents to bring over. They're the culture we want. We don't want somebody that's, you know, not happy at their company because and they start the list. It kind of makes me pause because there's so many things wrong with the company when it can't possibly be that way. Maybe it's the agent. So I love happy agents. And the one thing where I felt when Dean invited me to the table 12 years ago is that it was an invitation and I felt very special. And so when I was sitting there, I did have pause because I didn't feel good enough to be at Sotheby's. And I don't know where I got that perception, but it was luxury. And so just having somebody reach out to me and tell me I was invited to the table at Sotheby's was really important. So when I'm talking to those happy agents, I want to let them know that's why we're calling, is we are watching their trajectory, their business, their marketing. We are watching who they are, and that is an attraction to us. And we think we can elevate them further if they'll allow us or give us the opportunity to have a conversation.
Yeah, and I'm always surprised by, you know, the number of agents I speak to who say, you know, thank you for noticing that I've been doing well, or that, you know, I just closed that last big transaction because no one in my own brokerage has taken the time to reach out and congratulate me on a job well done. So those little things do make a big difference. You're so right.
Hey,
So
Tammy,
Sean,
I know
yeah,
Matthew has to leave us shortly, and I just had a question for him
yeah,
while he's here, if you
absolutely.
don't mind. Matthew, as a brokerage owner myself, and the kind of consolidation that's been going on out there, it's harder and harder, you know, for the profitability of these companies, right? You're not on speaker there.
You got a guy with a ladder behind you. That bit,
Yeah, not a problem. See, we're building, we're growing. That's what's happening here. But not a lot of firms are. They're going the other direction. They're closing offices, they're removing services, or they're looking for different succession plans. I mean, you're advising a lot of these brokerages. You're seeing this in front of you. I mean, it has to be sustainable, and it hasn't been profitable for a lot of brokerage owners these last couple of years. I mean, 40% correction in sales volumes is hard to survive. But what do you think is the solution forward? I mean, there's been some M&A out there. There's been some investment from Wall Street in these companies. Succession planning must be on the minds of some of these legacy operators and brands. What do you think's ahead?
Well, I think you're right. A couple of ways you have to look at it. One, from the private perspective. Yeah, then you are absolutely correct. You've also got brokerages that were created back in the 70s. They're already on their second generation of ownership, and these owners are getting older. Then they're trying to figure out what's going on in their world. Then, of course, the franchisee, depending on the model, same thing's applying. So the question then comes on a private side, value of the company. So will we see more consolidation? I think that will likely be the case. As far as those public entities, well, that's a very different kettle of fish. Once you get into that water, then Wall Street own you. You're as good as your last quarter, and that's kind of the direction that they tend to view it. Again, very transactional, and that commoditization that Tammy mentioned earlier on. So I think we are at an inflection point, not just from a broker owner perspective, from a broker or agent perspective as well. So you also got a lot of those agents who are getting older. They're trying to say they're looking for their direction to get out. Who's going to be replacing them? And that's going to be really interesting, because as much as you might be growing, or the perception is new brokers coming in, a lot of instances, for everyone that comes in, one's retiring. So you are in essence treading water. So I think that when you think about the real estate environment, the residential one in its totality, we are at this sort of a cascading effect, I think, which is going to mean we are going to see more consolidation. We're also going to see those better, more attuned brokerages gaining greater market share over and above their competition. So I think that over this next probably 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a big shakeup in the residential world in its entirety. So I think that now is the right time for people to start thinking about what will that look like for them. And so that's when these decisions are going to be made. So I think we're going to see more and more of that occurring over the course, I mentioned, over probably the next decade. It's going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
And it has to be sustainable too. I mean, the idea that you can just continue to throw Wall Street dollars at a business model that is challenged for profitability, might be a good segue to talk to Sean about what he's been seeing there. And I know you got to go, Matthew. So thank you for all your leadership, by the way, over nearly 30 years. And
you and I, that's right. Been a long time.
A great contributor. I appreciate you very much. Back to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome, Tammy. Nice to meet you all.
So I think that is a great segue to Sean. What are you seeing in the industry that prompted you to really think about a software platform that would focus on helping brokerages grow?
Thanks, Tammy. I appreciate the question. I'll first just start about what I'm seeing in the industry. It's probably more useful for folks who are listening. So generally speaking, we see a lot of agent movement, so a lot of recruiting every year. So 2024 saw $480 billion of sales volume and more than $12 billion of commissions recruited from one company to another. That doesn't include brand new agents joining a brokerage for the first time. So to give you a sense, take your largest kind of single owned brokerage in the country, double it in size. That's how much migration happens per year, every year, right? And so it's a big opportunity. Now we all know, right? Rates are high. I think the primacy and the ongoing primacy of teams and their collective bargaining nature of how they interact with the brokerage from a compensation perspective are generally pushing splits up over time. And there are some potential other dynamics going on with respect to some changes that happened in the industry last year, all kind of contributing generally to reduced profit margin at the brokerage level, right? And so I think most folks are basically and have had this thinking over the last, call it 2 years, is do I want to cut my way down in terms of OpEx out of the slow market? And you might have to do that. And most companies have already gone through that process, right? And that's extremely painful because you get to the point where the next cut could actually be removing something that's a true component of the value proposition.
Right.
Then on the other hand, you could say, can I grow my way out of the slow market? So can I basically add agents who are producing, who mesh well with our culture and are good fits? And it's the type of thing that Dean, spends a lot of time thinking about, very, very careful about who's the right type of fit for the company for the long run. And there's this great perspective on the legacy model that I'm sure he'll talk about in a moment. But that's the other side of the coin. And so to answer your question, we basically observed that, yes, recruiting is really important, as is retention, right? Because you can think of, the adage of you have to re-recruit each of your agents multiple times a year, if not every day of the year, in order to continue to be partnering with them. And I think that is time-consuming work, and it doesn't in the industry. It doesn't often rely on data to inform that practice. And so we found in general that folks were not targeting folks precisely enough. When it came to communicating with agents and recruiting, people are having to make really difficult choices between, do I communicate efficiently, which generally means everyone gets the same email from us saying, rah, 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 look at our just listeds, or look at our closings last week, or effective communication, which is it took me 40 minutes to then get writer's block, 40 minutes of research to then get writer's block, to then not actually reach out to the person quickly enough. And maybe they didn't even pick up their phone because they just got 200 calls from mediocre Zillow leads, right? And so this concept of balancing the effectiveness and the efficiency of the communication is something that you can do if you take a more of a data-driven approach to it. And so we use, large language models on top of MLS data to make that easier for folks who are in a recruiting scenario. And we're very proud to be working with many dozens of the largest and most innovative Sotheby's International Realty affiliates around the country, including Dean. And so that's been great. I do think something that's kind of unique about the Sotheby's International Realty brand, from my perspective as kind of a unbiased, independent person, right, is and I've mentioned to you before, Tammy, there is a consistent professionalism at the franchisor kind of owner level, kind of like Dean and Dean's peers, that is markedly different than the other companies that are out there. And I find that the types of things that I admire in Dean, which is, as you said, thinking about the future. Dean is a person who's, where everyone else is pulling back, he's investing more in his company right now. And I'd love to learn more about some of those things that he's offering to his community in the Northwest. That's a sign of taking a long-term view of your success. And I think that resonates really well with the Sotheby's International Realty brand, where you have this consistent leadership over time that's been there, that's been in place, that's participated and succeeded through market cycles. And I see that actually consistently at the franchisee level. And that makes it really fun to get to partner with them as well.
Yeah. So, when you're working with companies like Dean's, who's been, with Sotheby's International Realty for 15 years and has worked so hard, as many of his peers have, to create a culture which, continues to maintain a high bar in terms of service levels and providing value, which of course have contributed to his success. Now when you inject artificial intelligence and predictive analytics, how do you view that? And Val probably has some thoughts on this as well. How do you balance that with making sure that a company takes this information, but also has its culture in mind? So there's data and there's maintaining, this incredible culture and expectation of high performance. So can you kind of share with us how those two interplay?
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that maybe agents who haven't been on the management side don't appreciate is it may feel like a very elegant process where Val was describing this concept of attraction and not being solicitous, but it's kind of like the swan gliding along the lake. Like there's a lot of things going on below the surface to make this operation actually work. And so, one of the hardest things in recruiting is when you do not have a compelling value proposition. And the great thing about the Sotheby's International Realty Network is there is already this great value proposition, right? And often when I'm meeting folks, we're not getting out there on the front foot enough. But we have something so amazing to offer. We just need more people to know about it. We need the right people to know about it.
Right.
And so that's a specific solvable problem. Right. And one that can be accomplished with some of the things that you're talking about, Tammy. It's much different when you feel, as many companies do today, that either we don't offer enough financially to the agents, or we don't offer enough in terms of value and services. When you're kind of stuck there in the middle, we tend to find migration out of that middle to one of those other two models. And Sotheby's International Realty, to me, represents certainly amazing value and a great brand and great reputation, but also the opportunity to take home more money as the company helps you to build your business. And so in some ways you could say that's almost the best of both worlds, and you're not having to make a choice between those things. But that's also part of what needs to be communicated in the recruiting efforts. Now, on the artificial intelligence side, it's when folks like Dean and Val are more focused on quality over quantity. what artificial intelligence can do is to put you in a position where you can be spending more time face-to-face building human relationships in a consultative and not a transactional way. And so by that, I mean, instead of reaching out to 500 people this week, maybe there's 5 people this week who are not as busy now, who have struggled over the last 3 months, but have this really wonderful future trajectory that you want to help to maximize with the company. And we're going to use artificial intelligence potentially to suggest really compelling celebratory talking points that you can bring up to the agent without you having to go to 5 different places and do a bunch of work in Excel to kind of compare their close to list price ratio and how that grew relative to the market, and then to say that to them. And so, but what it comes back to is data that is allowing you to celebrate someone in a very human and authentic way, right? And so understanding, I always say each agent kind of is looking at that next phase of growth for them. They're a first-time home buyer's agent versus a trade-up buyer's agent versus they're doing more on the list side versus they want to start working with Dean in his former life as a developer, right? Doing new development projects. And so a good recruiter is going to quickly understand where they are in the context of their career, but specifically, what is that next step for them? And then understand the specific, not all of the things that the company offers, but the specific aspects of Realogics, Sotheby's International Realty, and how that can help you elevate your price point on the list side, for example. And I think that's, Val, that's something that I've been really impressed with you as to how you're able to kind of tailor the approach, not just to make the agent feel seen by you and celebrated by you, but also that you know what they are going to take advantage of the most from the company's perspective.
And I have to thank you because you have made it so easy. I think the recruiting has accelerated just because of your systems. I mean, we, for the past 5 years of recruiting, even when I was at corporate, it was digging for information and you can only get this much. And then you can go to their Instagram and their Facebook and their company page and learn a little bit about them. But the data is what we were looking for. For example, I meet with each leader each week and each team, and we talk about who we want and we go through the list, and I create watch lists like crazy, as you know, from Ask Team to implosion lists. And I love it because the data is there, and that's why we chose that. And that's what I wanted to talk about, was that because of it, we are able to see rising stars. All of us drive through our neighborhoods and we know the big whales, we know them, and we're going after them if we want them. We've already had a conversation with them. And if we haven't, we need to continue to have that conversation with them. I can't tell you many times I'm talking to a big whale and they'll come to us. Well, guess what? 3 months later, all of a sudden they pivoted and went somewhere else, but they always told us they'd come to us. It's those constant check-ins as well that you allow. I mean, that is built into your database. I love, because I do call everybody every 3 or 4 months if we really want them, if we want them at our table. The second thing is that I can identify the agents that are rising stars, or the 3, we know from your data that 3 to 8 years is a prime time to grab an agent at another company, especially if we're watching them elevate. And they love being recognized for that. The other thing is that for example, when a company is acquired by someone else, if we have not had, all of a sudden, if the big news is a company acquired a company, all the recruiters just start calling the other agents and they just start going down the list. Because we've already identified them, we've already had that conversation. And I noticed it in Nashville when a big implosion happened. I was able to call our list that we had already said, hello, we want you. And it was way more of an attractive conversation because they knew this wasn't just because the implosion happened. It was because we truly cared about them before the implosion. And your database keeps us, keeps us aligned with what's going on in the market and who's doing what.
Val, you raise a good point. Sean, I don't know if you have thoughts about this, in terms of how likely breakage is when companies acquire other companies. Val makes a great point that, you had to have that relationship before that moment happens. But what are you seeing in terms of, breakage upon acquisition?
Yeah. So this is a little bit of part of the conversation earlier. My view is that we're going to see quite a lot of M&A this year. We have brokerage owners who have been struggling to make ends meet, haven't been able to grow out of a slow market, but still have some market share. And the acquiring company is looking for a good deal. And so that's the way that the owners of the acquired company, to be acquired company, can personally, generate some wealth and have an exit opportunity. And your question is, so what happens to that agent population? So generally speaking, that M&A tends to work well for the company that's buying the brokerage. However, that is not to say that everybody stays, right? The acquiring company typically says, okay, we're going to be able to weather the storm, so to speak, and we might put in some contractual clawback provisions or whatnot for the group that's being acquired. That doesn't mean that every person in that company that's being acquired has signed up to go work at the new company. And so there's a lot of work internally scrambling, because these are usually very private among a very small group of people at the acquired company that most people don't know that this is coming. And that's what triggers, to Val's point, like this influx of calls to the agents. And so we do see a lot of migration. You tend to sometimes have the largest producers are kind of economically persuaded to stay at the new entity, because the owners of the company that's being sold say, we can't afford to have an exodus that is kind of catalyzed by you, the top producer, from leaving. But there, generally speaking, is quite a lot of vulnerability. There's elevated risk level for attrition in a company that's being acquired. And so, I think Val is also playing a long game here, where she's willing to build relationships, like authentic relationships with people, even if they don't join next week. It's like the equivalent of a lead, right? If someone calls you because you bought a lead on Zillow and they say, I'm only willing to buy in 3 months. You can either say, okay, goodbye, I can't help you because I've got other leads. I've got 2 other calls to make this, in the next 10 minutes. Or you could say, great, can I understand more about your need such that I can tell you some information about the school districts or the other things that you'd want? And then I'm here as a resource whenever you are ready to start touring homes. That's the same type of conversation, the latter, that we encourage having on the recruiting side, because this is a revenue stream, right? While a client can bring you 1 transaction in the next couple of years, an agent could bring you many transactions that they're contributing on and participating in with you over the next coming months. And so in that respect, I think that is one of the places you want to be the most consultative and the least transactional is when it comes to those agents. And so building that base of relationships with the people that you think are a good fit early on, back to your point on culture, before any of these events happen, will only serve you well. You'll basically be paying it forward such that in the event of M&A, we see that happening. And I do also think we have seen in the news a lot of big M&A, right? So large, notable companies, big regional companies who have been acquired. My sense is we're going to see M&A at a smaller scale as well in 2025. So 50, 75 agent brokerages, that's going to be quite a common, it may be positioned as recruiting potentially in the news coverage, but I think that that type of M&A at that level is going to become much more common this year as well.
And there's another kind of breakage, if I could just segue into this one, Tammy, and it's not just the agent-to-agent conversations that Val's having, but even my existence at Realogics Sotheby's International Realty was caused by acquiring a franchisee within a large organization and an entire book of business that went with that. So some of the independent franchise owners are not necessarily going to follow suit with their principal leadership when they do have a succession plan, or there is an M&A, or there is a culture shift, or there is a comp change, or any of the above. So, and that's actually happened twice for us now in my experience, that we had significant growth by virtue of converting an existing franchisee from any number one of the companies. So I think that's a misnomer, that just because a brand ownership decides to take, some Wall Street capital or become merger with another organization, you have to remember, and as an attorney, Tammy, that a lot of times these franchise owners can leave and part ways at that time and just align with somebody like ourselves. And that's the business plan that I've made, is this era of the mega brokerage at this turn, this inflection point Matthew spoke to in the roaring 20s, which I think is before us 100 years after the last, pandemic, I see tremendous growth potential, but it's not from me acquiring other companies. It's from them joining the one that I've built. And I'm planning on that breakage to come and see the runway that I've lit up here with Val and with your predictive analytics, Sean, has helped us go after the few, not the many, the few that we think are right fit. So it's kind of a Goldilocks moment. And I want to be that right fit for those brokers that want to grow, not just over this next, duration of what I think is going to be a booming time in real estate's recovery, but in the legacy of their career. Because at our brand, Tammy, I don't believe you have to sunset your income in the sunset of your career. I'm watching many of our agents choosing this beautiful brand that you have built with your peers, many of which are still in their executive positions 10 and 20 years in. And it's your leadership that's got my faith about where we're going as a brand overall. And Val, that's what they're looking for. I think we have a blue business card and a blue passport because they perfectly align in a lifestyle proposition of traveling the world and making referrals, even if you are building a team first before you do that, Val.
Agree. And one last thing that to resonate what Sean just said about the companies, in Greenville, for example, there is somebody that has been on our radar. He owns his own company and he's got just 5 agents, but he is the leader in that area in Hot Springs. And we are talking to him. Now, he's not going to show up on Inman and that as an acquisition, but there's a great, there's a very good chance that we will, acquire or partner with him and grow our presence in a different market that we need to be in that's becoming a luxury market. And I've watched that from West Palm Beach to St. Helena to Capitola, which I was a part of helping, where we find great agents we want to partner with the Sotheby's International brand. And that is when they come to us and we just grow authentically. And it's not a big splash. It's very strategic. And with Corded, we're able to watch those companies more easily and identify them and strike.
That's so interesting. Back to you for a moment, because you have been very strategic, as you described, over the last 15 years in building this amazing brokerage, but you've also had to respond to a lot of different market conditions. You've had to respond to competitors trying to recruit your agents. How have you thought about that? How have you responded to those changing dynamics? And how are you working on retention? Because as Sean mentioned earlier, the retention piece is as important as the recruiting piece. You can be recruiting and then losing as much, in the same breath. So that doesn't move your company ahead. You have found consistent ways to continue to move ahead. So I'm interested in hearing from you, like, what strategies have you used to combat
perseverance and investment. I mean, I've just thought that you can't save your way to prosperity. And so, yes, I've had to make significant investments in my brokerage. We just extended leases. I did not consolidate any of my divisions. We have scaled back. We've had to make some hard decisions, like a 4-day work week in some cases, because we didn't want to lose the beautiful minds that we had in the company, because we wanted to scale forward again. And that's kind of what Sean was saying earlier, that in rapid consolidation or cutbacks, you could lose a lot of talent and frankly lose a lot of faith and goodwill about where you're taking your company on the next turn. Now, did it take a little longer than I anticipated? We all thought the market would be coming blazing back faster than it did. We're in this higher for longer rate environment. We've got a lot of answers about where our country is headed politically and otherwise. But I think all those headwinds for me are now turning around, becoming tailwinds. I feel like we're in the right place at the right time with the right brand and the right leadership. Thank you, Val, for helping us welcome that next generation of brokerage, that we are being led to where the market's going next. And I would say that one of the most compelling offerings that I could bring to our industry or to our brokers that join this family that we choose it's beyond the culture and our bespoke retail locations and our, various lifestyle partnerships that we have out there. It's truly going to where the market is going next and being accretive to the business proposition that our agents are looking for. We are doubling down on the major trends, Tammy, like the $90 trillion great wealth transfer that's before us, or the urban renaissance that we're seeing happening in our markets around us, new construction, referral migrations. There are numerous other propositions that we are doing through content marketing. Like locally here in Washington State, we have the largest upzone in the history of the state, effectively abolishing single family zoning and allowing multiple dwelling units to be built on single family lots. Well, we are going to be a thought leader and first to market in that category. What do all of those examples have in common? It's where the market's going next. So the average agent has lost at least a third of their business through the competitive landscape and the slowdown in the industry. If they continue to do the same things as they have been with the same team, they're likely to have some improvement in the coming year or two as the market rebounds, but not a category that we are speaking to, that we are trying to build to the next. I want my fair share of the market as well for all of our brokers, and we're planning on that. But I want an inordinate share of where the market's going next. And that's where I see the trust and capability in this beautiful brand with our vertically integrated advertising and creative agency, with the divisions through referrals and new construction. You can start to see the kit of parts that we get to have a conversation about. And for the most part, Val, when we're having those invitations to these new agents to join us, no one in their company is having those conversations because they're all focused on Wall Street and I'm focused on Main Street. I am going deep locally and I am not trying to go broad nationally. Now, some of these are convertible ideas, Tammy, which we hope we can share through you, but I think we share that as a network, as a brand. And that's one of the things I love most about Sotheby's International Realty is we're not competing with one another. We're really collaborating with one another. And that is the culture that I see also in residence here in our brokerage operations. Agents are surprised, Val, that they don't have to run to the fax machine when that was a thing or quietly be on their phone call. I mean, our agents are being led by our top producers that are teaching collaboration hours. And we invented this platform called Accelerate, which is all about how to drop the gear and move forward in this market at a time when performance matters the most. So multiple facets, Tammy, on what we're doing to distinguish ourselves. They are all to resist commoditization. I think some of my peers in this industry that are trying to be the discount brokerage or rebate models are going to race to the bottom. We want to add value and invest in your future and not carry forward your past. And that's why I think this great agent migration is before us, because they might be happy, Val, but they know what they need next. And they're going to leave where they've been to get the advantages going forward in their next. And we want to be their future.
That is so well stated, Dean. I know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it because I think it's going to be so informative for our audience. Given that you're not a licensed broker yourself, one of the great things about that is you don't compete with any of your other brokers, but how do you manage and build a company that has sold many billions, more than $20 billion dollars of real estate without being a top producer yourself?
Well, I think for one thing, if I became a top producer myself, I would fundamentally change the culture of the company that we keep. I invest in great leadership, sometimes from other industries, but obviously our broker managers have over 100 years of experience. We have won all the awards for marketing and sales prowess, whether that's NAHB or local business journal awards for growth. But I really think it is the culture that we have defined here, which is a different sort of company. And I don't have any other experience to take bad habits about how it was built 30, 40, or 100 years ago in some of these other companies. I literally had to build it from the mind up. And I think we were the first to coin the notion of a founding member. These are almost equity-like relationships that we have asked those first couple of agents to come on board and help us build a reseller organization. at the depths of the Great Recession when we were before, as you know, Tammy, all about new construction. And we had to build step by step, block by block, agent by agent, and do it the natural way of adding value to their business, saying what we'll do and do what we say, and then watching meteoric growth happen within those agents, and then helping them build teams. So by listening to our agents from the mind up, we started making investments about building a brokerage by brokers for brokers. And we still carry that forward today with, you know, several billion in sales a year and several hundred agents. And we want to grow. We made the intention that we can find a few hundred more of those types of brokers that are intent on building their business here with us, with our unique tools and core advantages. So as long as you are seeing ascension within your staff, many of which have celebrated, you know, 12, 15 years with us, and then those founding members, most of which are still with us, you know, they resisted the competitors, as I call them affectionately, that have come alongside and said, let me make you some promises that may or may not be kept. Let me give you some stock options, which may or may not be of value. And let me have you sign this marketing engagement that may or may not have worked. But guess what's happening now? 3 or 4 years later, after those offers have been made, we're having these boomerang conversations where those very agents that left are now exploring a new horizon with us yet again. The golden handcuffs are melting off. They're seeing the market thaw, and they want to sort of come out of hibernation of where they've been and get engaged again, get excited again, and make this industry fun again. And that's what I believe we're offering through our culture, Val. And you're having a lot of those conversations. And Sean, your analytics are helping us see who those are because of where they've been, how long they've been there, what their performance has been. So the long story is, to the point, we need to add value to our brokers, period. We need to grow their business. And as long as we're doing that consistently, the only number that matters at the end of the year is not the split, it's 1099. And our brokers are fundamentally earning more, winning more, and keeping more than their propositions that are being offered at some of the other brands.
Well, I think that is kind of a perfect way to conclude our time together. Dean, you said it so well. It's not about you know, the dollar and cents on a particular transaction. It's the long game, as you say, and where agents are going to find that they are supported for that long term and what comes next. It's amazing to be with a company that is always looking to the future. And never being satisfied with where we are, because once we get satisfied, that's when we get behind. And none of us have ever taken that view, despite the fact that we've all had long tenures. You know, Dean, I know how proud you are to talk about the tenure of your agents and your staff. We feel the same way on a corporate level. You know, our CEO, Philip White, has been with the company for 30 plus years. I've been here for 20 plus years. Our CMO has been here for 10 plus years. So that notwithstanding, we are always looking to the future, and you know, it's amazing to have a network of members like yourself who are always, you know, encouraging us and being so cooperative and generous with your time and sharing best practices. It really lifts us all up together. And, you know, I feel very lucky to be in your company, Dean.
Oh, I'm so fortunate to be in your company and working alongside you, Val and Sean. And, you know, there's plenty of market share to go around out there, but I'll just remind our audience that market share is not what sells homes and represents buyers. Individual agents do, and the most productive agents do that more. So that would be my answer to any question about global domination in this industry. We're just trying to do it a few agents at a time on Main Street right here, and I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Well, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Really
guys.
nice
Thank you,
Appreciate
everyone.
that.
Thank you.